Representative Green present himself to the well. By its adoption of House Resolution 189, the House has resolved that Representative Al Green be censured, that Representative Al Green forthwith present himself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure, and that Representative Al Green be censured with public reading of this resolution by the Speaker. The House has come to order. The House has come to order. What's that? What's that? You want to let him keep doing this, or it's only fair?
Seriously?
The House has come to order. Clear the well, please. Clear the well.
They're sounding like dying whales. You could not script a more incompetent, fringe, out-of-touch Democrat Party than what has been repeatedly on display all this week. This was the week that proved to more voters than ever the proverbial tale of two cities, or better, a two politics, that Trump and the MAGA movement are the vibrant, hopeful, and exciting future of the nation. And the Democrats are the old, sterile, demented party of the past who are literally unraveling as we speak. I got the receipts, gang. We're going to see how Trump and MAGA are today more popular than ever, and how the Democrats are literally crumbling into dust right before our very eyes. Greetings, everyone. It is Livestream Friday. As always, I am your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to celebrate with you the dawn of the new conservative era that you made possible back on November 5th. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You'll want a front row seat on all things involving the rise of a new civilizationalist world. As always, we got a jam-packed show for you today. I promise, it is my goal, I promise to make you feel smarter at the end of it all. Our super chats, of course, are now up, so feel free to ask me your questions. I'll be happy to answer them throughout the live stream. You can actually send in your questions in two ways, either through a one-time gift via the super chats or by becoming a Courageous Patriots Club member, where your monthly gift will enable you to ask me as many questions as you like. So just click on that link below to join. You'll have access to all kinds of exclusive live Q&As and special content. Either way, it will be my privilege to answer your questions all throughout this live stream. What a week, gang. I mean, wow. What a week. What an incredible week. The centerpiece, of course, was President Trump's epic speech. 40 million people across the nation watched it live, and it was undeniably Trump's greatest speech yet. Britt Hume of Fox News nailed it. He said, if you ever doubted that Donald Trump is the political colossus of our time, this night and this speech should have put that to rest. A CBS poll taken immediately after Trump's speech says it all. I mean, gang, seriously, look at these numbers. 77% support Trump's plan to cut government waste and spending. 77%. 77% back his immigration border policies. 76% approve of removing that Congressman Al Green. Oh, man, Al Green with his raging we shall overcome Green, who interrupted his speech. Yes, 76% approved of removing him. 74% say his speech was presidential. 73% say his stance on Russia and Ukraine is correct. 68% said that the speech made them feel hopeful and proud. 68% said he has a clear plan to tackle inflation. 68% said he accurately described America's crime crisis. 63% said he focused on issues that they care about. That's a key number. 6 in 10 said that speech was fundamentally about issues they care about. And just in case you thought this was the MAGA faithful watching that speech, that same CBS survey found that only 51% of viewers identified as Republicans. suggesting that Trump's message resonated way beyond his 2024 base. The speech as a whole garnered a 76% approval among viewers. I've said it before. That is not a supermajority. That is a super duper majority. Okay. That is dominance like we have simply never seen in modern day politics. A supermajority doesn't even come close to describing this. This is a super duper majority. Even CNN, the most distrusted name in fake news, posted similar numbers to the CBS poll. They gave President Trump a 69% approval. So we are seeing really this kind of 80-20 political realignment happening in real time. Trump highlighted a litany of measures, each of which enjoys a supermajority of support. The deportation of illegal migrants who've committed crimes, the undertaking of full-scale efforts to find and eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse, the closing of our southern border, the banning of trans athletes from competing in women's sports, even having a female athlete in the galley there as one of his guests who got brain injury from a male. She was a volleyball player, got spiked in the face from a trans athlete on the other side. You got the declaration that there are only two genders, the elimination of all DEI initiatives, the freezing of foreign aid, the imposition of reciprocal tariffs, which are very, very popular, the mass cutting of government expenditures, the ending of bans on oil drilling. Trump's America First agenda is the new supermajority consensus, or as I've heard it put, it's called the consensus of common sense. It's uniting left and right in a way that's completely realigned our politics away from the horizontal divide of left and right to now a vertical divide, the people versus the aloof, entrenched political class. The American Thinker had a great article out this morning, in effect saying this is the hope and change that Americans have always wanted. How do you like that? This, MAGA, America First, is the real, genuine hope and change that Americans have always wanted. The irony is that Obama, who coined the phrase, actually gave us just more of the same, as the article brilliantly points out. Obama's hope and change involved further opening our borders and flooding our nation with cheap immigrant labor. It involved more of exporting our manufacturing overseas. It involved starting new wars in Africa, Ukraine, and the Middle East. It gave us more of the same. And this author here noted that no wonder the Bushes and Obamas are such good friends, and no wonder the Cheneys enthusiastically endorse Kamala Harris. They're exactly the same. It's the people versus this political class made up of both establishment parties. It's a duopoly. It's a uniparty. And so it's Trump that's actually giving Americans real change and real hope. And he's doing it by overturning what scholars call the liberal globalist consensus. So this was a political consensus that dominated the West for the last 3 decades, certainly after 1991, after the fall of the Soviet Union. And this was a consensus that was shared by both establishment Republicans and Democrats, Romney and Obama. Didn't matter. It was just a matter of really more or less, how do you manage this consensus? And it was a consensus that was mainly defined by 3 things. The first 2 are easy to conceive because it's dealing with open borders, but open borders moving in 2 opposite directions. First and foremost, you have the open borders that allowed for uncontrolled mass migration to seep into the country and supply corporations with cheap migrant labor, hidden behind the veneer of humanitarianism and moral righteousness, of course. So that's one side of the open borders. Then the second side is a global division of labor that exported manufacturing and industrial jobs overseas so as to maximize transnational corporate profits. So the first 2 points of this 3-point liberal globalist consensus centers on open borders with migrants coming in by the mass to give cheap migrant labor, and open borders where manufacturing industry were sent out. So an internal and an external open border, as it were, so as to maximize profits for corporations by keeping the bottom line as low as possible. And then the attempt to protect and safeguard that consensus involved dramatic crackdowns on free speech in the public square so as to stifle any dissent to this liberal globalist consensus. And that was the role of wokeness. When all said and done, wokeness was all an attempt to protect this liberal globalist consensus of open borders, bringing migrants in and shipping manufacturing jobs out. Wokeness sought to protect that consensus by recasting any dissent against the liberal globalist consensus as bigoted and racist and xenophobic and white nationalists and the like. Obama, far from being anything even remotely hope and change. And by the way, a lot of conservative commentators bought into that back in 2008, 9, and 10. They're all like, Obama's a Marxist. He's trying to fundamentally change America. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. He was a globalist. He was a liberal globalist. Unless you want to say liberal globalism is Marxism, but then Bush is too. Bush Jr. was just every bit as much a globalist as Obama. So Obama, far from being hope and change, was the climax of this liberal globalist consensus. He really was, in the end, nothing more than more of the same. And what we're finding with Trump is that Trump represents nothing less than the complete collapse of that liberal globalist consensus. Trump is closing the borders. He's authorizing the most mass deportation program in our nation's history. He's using tariffs to bring manufacturing, industrial jobs back into the nation, which he's doing, by the way, very successfully. You remember Obama back in 2015? He was telling us all those jobs are gone. They're gone. They're gone forever. You got to learn to code, right? There was nothing a candidate Trump could do to reverse it. He can't reverse that. Those jobs are gone. Well, he has. He has reversed. It's called tariffs. Something that Obama never even imagined. And tariffs have the power to be able to encourage corporations to open up manufacturing plants inside the United States so as to avoid those tariffs. Trump is, of course, crushing wokeness. He's eliminating DEI. He's declared there are only two genders. He's restoring free speech. And despite the 24/7 barrage of negative media coverage, DOGE and Trump's attempt to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse like never before, DOGE is now more popular than ever before. Even CNN is having to admit that voters are solidly behind these efforts. Take a look.
How are they feeling?
Yeah, this to me was one of the more shocking figures that I saw. Made me go, wait a minute, hold on one second. Whoa, Americans on Trump and Joe's efforts. Musk and DOGE should influence government spending and operations. Look at this. 54%. The majority say that he and they should. How about approve of Trump trying to cut staff at government agencies? Again, you get a majority here. 51%. So yeah, Elon Musk might not be that popular, but these cuts and the idea of spending cuts, at least within the federal government and cutting at government agencies, that actually has majority support. I was truly surprised by this, Kate, but the numbers are the numbers.
The numbers are the numbers. So it's no wonder that according to JL Partners and the Daily Mail, Trump is currently polling at his highest level ever. His approval is now a staggering 54%, a +8 over his disapproval. The Daily Mail has launched a monthly tracker to keep tabs on Trump's approval ratings. And after just 7 full weeks in office, Trump is currently polling higher than he ever has. Take a look at the latest right track, wrong track polls. According to Quantum Insights, 50% of the country believes we as a nation are finally on the right track. That's a near 20-point swing from the Biden era. And according to Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen, for the first time in over 20 years of polling, right direction exceeds wrong direction in terms of their daily polling, which then leads, of course, to presidential approval. And again, according to Mark Mitchell and others, Trump has simply never at any point in his 2 terms ever been stronger. Trump even has a 30% approval among Democrats. This, according to Rasmussen again. This is just unprecedented. In the latest CBS poll, Trump is crushing it with Gen Z. We talked about this. Voters under the age of 30. He's got a 55% approval with a voter constituency that had voted for Biden by a 30-point margin just a few short years ago, which now feels like, my gosh, it feels like a different era, a different epoch at this point. In fact, Trump polls higher with the youngest voters under the age of 40, than any other age demographic in the nation. And keep in mind, studies show that we all get at least 1% more conservative with every year we age. I don't know what happened to Bernie Sanders, but that's the average. So this is just absolutely incredible in terms of how it all bodes for the future. We really are seeing a new supermajority, a new political consensus, a consensus of common sense that is fully MAGA, fully America first, emerge right before our very eyes. So where does that leave the Democrats? How has this week been for the Democrat Party? Oh, he shall overcome. Well, we got the stats, and let's just say they got a lot they're going to need to overcome. But first, as you all know, we're all about MAGA and MAHA here on this channel. Make America great again and make America healthy again. And I got to tell you about my personal experience with the Elixir mixer. You're going to love this because I love it. One of my team managers came to me and he said, this is a few weeks back, well, actually a couple of months ago now. He said he and his wife had been taking an all-natural, all-in-one supplement that's helping them tremendously. They're feeling vibrant and healthy. They're noticing they were losing weight and the like. And he thought it would be a great idea for me to try, being that I'm getting more serious and proactive about my health. So I did. And as you know, I take lots of supplements. I love biohacking. And so I tried it. And gang, I got to say, this is my second month on it right now. And I see why so many others are spreading the word about it. The Elixir mixer is freaking amazing. And I'll give it the ultimate compliment I can give is I feel it when I don't take it. I mean, if you scrutinize the ingredients all the way down to the other ingredients at the bottom, you could clearly see it's a very high quality formula, completely made from only whole food sourced ingredients. My mental energy is increased. My physical stamina is improving. My sleep has gotten better. My appetite has gone down. Gang, I kid you not. This is amazing. I don't battle snack or carbohydrate cravings like I used to. I'm definitely feeling leaner, stronger. I'm looking forward to my next annual exam so I can find out like all my improvements of my vitals and my diagnostics, all factors and benefits considered. This is a bargain. But to make it even better, I want to make sure you get the special extra discount on your orders. That special code is Steve17. Okay, it's Steve17. Use that in the last checkout step when you order, and you get to save even more on your personal monthly supply. Gang, trust me, this is one you'll want to take for life. And if you got a spouse or partner, just double up on your quantity so you're both supplied with the best your body can get. Make sure to click on that link below to get your own Elixir mixer. Use promo code Steve17, that's Steve17, for an awesome discount. Click on that link below right now. I love it. After the show, I'm going to go and mix up my Elixir mixer, have a get a good post-show recovery, right? Got a bunch of interviews today that I have to get prepared for, mentally and physically. So Trump has undeniably had an amazing week. By stark contrast, this has been a horrific week for the Democrats. And I mean, horrific doesn't even begin to cut it. Remember, it all started with the internet realizing that Democrat Senators Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren posted identical videos word for word with the exact same script in anticipation of Trump's speech before the joint session of Congress. Do we have that?
I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down, they're up. Inflation is getting worse, not better. The prices of groceries, gas, housing, eggs, of essentials is not getting better, it's getting worse. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has done nothing, goose eggs, to lower prices for you. Instead, he's pardoned violent criminals who savagely beat police officers on January 6th. That's an effing disgrace. He's letting Elon Musk take a chainsaw to vital government programs, and then, even worse, giving him access to Americans' most sensitive data. Social security numbers, tax returns, healthcare bills.
It's the same, like, snap editing. They're both holding the microphone in their hands, sitting down, same exact lines. Now, as if that wasn't embarrassing enough, right? They're both trying to come across as if they're authentic, taking time to talk to their voters, their own constituents. As it turns out, it was nothing more than a bunch of scripted talking points put together by someone other than these senators. But then things took a turn for the worse. It started with two, but then the internet discovered a third.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down, they're up. Inflation is getting worse, not better. The prices of groceries, gas, housing, eggs, of essentials.
And just when you thought three Democrat senators saying the exact same thing was bad, well,
We'll immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That's what you
yeah, that's right. 22 Democrat senators were caught, all literally reading off the same script. And we're talking choreographed even physically. They're all holding this laminate mic. They're all sitting down, acting like, they're really trying to, take your concerns seriously. And they're all just a bunch of artificial dweebs. Embarrassing doesn't even begin to cut it. And then, of course, you had all the antics, the performative absurdities at the joint session of Congress speech, climaxing, old man Al Green pointing his cane, interrupting the proceedings with his incoherent rant. And he gets his butt thrown out. And then you had all the Democrats holding up their stupid little signs that were the object of total mockery, even among fellow Democrats like Stephen Colbert, or, you got, who else? What's his name? Bill Maher. And I mean, the Democrats were just utterly humiliated by these humiliating fails. But the best was yet to come. It was one of the most humiliating fails for all the nation to say, oh, by the way, and we have to remember the key calculus of that night, the night of President Trump's epic speech. It was a speech that got massive ratings, 40 million tuned in. It was approved of by nearly 80% of viewers, according to CBS. While at the same time, the Democrats picked that very moment to humiliate themselves before the eyes of the nation. So this is why I'm saying this really is a tale of two cities. Trump has never been so high in popular approval, and the Democrats have never been so low. But then after those two back-to-back L's, after those two back-to-back embarrassments, then the Democrats stooped to the most cringe-worthy stunt yet. They posted this Choose Your Fighter skit that supposedly tried to fire up their base. Now, you're watching this. I know this. Everyone thought this was AI. They could not believe this was real. So these are Democrat women trying to depict themselves as video game fighters, like getting ready to go into the ring. And they only made themselves more laughing stocks than they already were. It was their third fail in a row. It was so cringe. Here's Scott Jennings on CNN doing his best to try to console and counsel and talk sense to these ideological lunatics.
Being creative, you're going to get criticism, right? But I actually applaud them for trying to do something different. And here's the reality. 7 million followers, whether you think it's cringe or you like it, We're on CNN on a Thursday night, and we're talking about it on national TV.
But I guess my question is, to what end? I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. I mean, maybe you will get 7 million eyeballs, but what is the point?
I am not accustomed to helping your party do anything.
Yep.
But let me give you some advice. This was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And if you read the comments today, Lord have mercy. Look, scrambling for new social media and communication strategies is not a replacement for fixing what's actually wrong. Your party has a 21% approval rating right now, Congressional Democrats.
Well, let's talk about fixing what's wrong. Donald Trump is doing nothing for the American people.
And he has a 50% approval rating.
But he's doing nothing for the American people.
And so
he's not lowering the cost of living.
Advice
he tells lies.
Fix the policy and leave the gimmicks behind.
Yes.
Now, you'll notice how utterly absurd her reaction was. By the way, I just love Scott James. What a turn of phrase, you know, him and John Kennedy from Louisiana. They got this Madlock kind of air to them, you know. You look at the comments under that video, Lord have mercy. I mean, it's just so hilarious. But notice how absurd her reaction was. Here's Scott basically saying, look, if you actually read the comments on that video, you will see what a profound public relations disaster that was. Okay. The gap between your perception as part of the political class and the reality of how the country is perceiving you could not be more stark. And he's trying to explain that to her. And how does she respond? She responds by barking off anti-Trump talking points that literally mean nothing. Even CNN's Harry Enton could not hold himself back. Take a look at this.
Thank you, Anna.
There's a reason why congressional Democrats have like a 20% approval rating, and even amongst their own party has like a 40%, the lowest Quinnipiac has ever measured. And I think last night and sort of what's been going on over the past few months is a gosh darn good illustration of that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just Harry Enton of CNN. Here's focus group guru Frank Luntz on CNBC.
Viewers really disliked. They saw it as performance art. They saw it as a bad form of opposition. And they've been asking the Democrats now since the beginning of this administration, what is your alternative? As critical as I am of Trump's communication, the Democrats are much worse. That for them, there is no policy. There's only opposition. Obviously, I reach out to both parties in conversation in doing my job, and I hear nothing from the Democratic Party in communicating a coherent agenda, in communicating a coherent message. And in fact, what they decided to do with those paddles, what they decided to do with Congressman Green, was absolutely abhorrent to voters. What the public is looking for right now, they believe that Trump's agenda is correct. They want illegal immigration to stop. They want accountability in Washington. They want safe streets, safe neighborhoods. They agree with what he's doing, and they disagree with the Democrats in where they stand. All they're simply asking for is look forward, not look backward.
And this is the key. I mean, for the Democrats, I think Luntz is right. There is no policy. There's only opposition. There is no coherent alternative agenda to Trump's nationalist populism. And Democrats are openly admitting this. Look at this from Politico. This is interesting. They're reporting on a liberal polling outlet called Blueprint, sampling the Democrats' own base, and they found that only 10% of their own voters, their diehards, 10% think the Democrats have a good plan to effectively oppose President Trump. 10%. I mean, it literally does not get a lot worse than that. 40% of their base, again, these are Democrat voters, believe that their party is clueless. They don't have an effective plan to even remotely deal with Trump. And frankly, I got to be honest with you. I don't see how there can be. That's given my limited perspective, but I don't see how there can be an effective plan to deal with Trump given the political paradigm shift we're seeing. Again, we have to remember that the Democrats, like the liberal political parties in Europe that are all having a temper tantrum after Trump threw Zelensky out on his ear from the White House, But we have to remember that the Democrats are representatives of what we called the liberal globalist consensus, as we talked about earlier, right? Open borders for cheap labor, exporting manufacturing jobs overseas to maximize the bottom line for CEOs, and wokeness and political correctness to protect and maintain that exporting and those open borders. And the problem for the Democrats and the political establishment more broadly is that this liberal globalist consensus has completely collapsed in the hearts and minds of most voters. I mean, there's just really no way around that. I don't know how many more studies, polls, and so forth we need to get in order to convince anybody of that. I mean, we talked a lot about the latest Harvard-Harris poll that came out a few days before President Trump's address, and it showed that Trump already enjoyed supermajority support for virtually every single one of his policies. Every single one. 81% of voters, according to Harvard-Harris, support deporting illegal migrants who committed crimes. 76% support the undertaking of full-scale efforts to find and eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. 76% support closing the border. 69% support banning trans athletes from competing in women's sports. 68% support declaring that there are only two genders. Did you hear that? 68%. We used to get banned for saying that on Twitter. 65% support merit-based hiring and the elimination of all DEI initiatives. 63% support freezing all foreign aid. 61% support reciprocal tariffs. 59% support cutting government expenditures. 57% support ending bans on offshore drilling. Trump's America First agenda is the new supermajority consensus. And so this is why I believe the Democrats really have no answer. It's why they're trying to make it all about Elon Musk. Elon, this crazy, terrible Elon. They have no coherent opposition or alternative to Trump's America First policies, precisely because in the end, they're all reflective of a tiny, incoherent minority of voters. I shared this tweet the other day, but I think it just captured it perfectly. This dying Democrat Party supports illegal aliens over U.S. citizens. The Democrats support criminals over victims. The Democrats support government employees over taxpayers. The Democrats support men in women's sports. The Democrats support big pharma over health. The Democrats support educational elites over parents. And the Democrats, particularly Pocahontas, support war over peace. So it's no wonder that the Democrats are currently polling at their lowest support level ever, just over 20% approval, according to the latest Quinnipiac. 8 in 10 voters want nothing to do with the Democrats. And it's because in the end, they are trying, I would argue, they are trying in vain to politicize issues that are now pre-political. I think that's key to understand why the Democrats are in such a polling freefall right now. They are trying to politicize issues that are pre-political. So, for example, there is, as we speak, virtually universal support among voters to rid the federal government of as much waste, fraud, and abuse as possible. Who's going to argue against that, right? And what's so interesting is that support precedes anyone's political affiliation, right? That's what I mean by pre-political. You don't have to be a partisan to be against waste, fraud, and abuse. And so what the Democrats are trying to do is they're trying to partisanize what is in effect a pre-partisan or transpartisan issue. And now, to make matters even worse, the Democrats are literally falling apart. I kid you not. It's not just simply a matter of them not being able to find a coherent message. In the midst of the absence of that message, now the Democrat national infrastructure is literally unraveling. It is literally coming apart. Wait until you see this. But first, gang, now that Fauci has been pardoned, RFK is obviously going to unearth what most of us already knew about the pandemic. It's so sad this effort won't help the tens of millions who never felt the same after getting that virus or the mRNA shots. We all know someone with a personal story. Pfizer has been forced to release a detailed list of side effects associated with its COVID-19 shots. And a common concern among those side effects is what's called long COVID syndrome, a condition that leaves people feeling, brain fog and chronic fatigue, shortness of breath, lingering for months in some cases. For some, it's years. Well, the good news is that the wellness company is here to help with their long COVID syndrome supports. Brand new. You got 4 doctor-formulated nutraceuticals with 5 to 8 plants and minerals in each bottle, designed to address the root causes. You got Ultimate Spike Detox, Mind Lift, Elevated Energy, and Healthy Heart. Dr. McCullough recommends a durable recovery through holistic health, with COVID syndrome support being an essential part of that. Now, right now, you could save $40 off on the bundle and even get an additional $34 off plus free shipping. Just click on that link below or head on to twc.health/Turley and use code Turley to take action today for a healthier tomorrow. That is twc.health/Turley. All right, gang. The New York Times is reporting that ActBlue, if you don't know ActBlue is the premier Democrat political action committee. The New York Times is reporting that ActBlue is officially unraveling. It's happening, gang. They are according to the New York Times report, ActBlue is in, quote, turmoil. It's experiencing mass resignations. 7 of their top executives have all left in the past 3 weeks. None of them will even remotely explain on record why they left. 2 unions representing ActBlue employees, they're questioning the group's stability and viability, and they're calling the situation, quote, alarming. The last remaining lawyer at ActBlue's general counsel's office has been locked out of his email and put on leave after sending internal messages that basically accuse ActBlue employees of mass fraud. I mean, gang, it's literally imploding in on itself. And it isn't a coincidence that ActBlue, again, the #1 Democrat political action committee, it is not a coincidence that ActBlue is imploding within weeks after what plug got pulled. After just weeks after USAID funds were cut. And we now know ActBlue was getting our tax dollars. Again, I really like what Peter St. Onge observed. Elon agreed in retweeting this tweet that one of the most exciting aspects of DOGE is how it all suggests the entire political facade of the radical left is actually fake. We tend to think of the left as being in power and being formidable, but it's actually all been a farce. It's all tax-funded astroturf, meaning that for any country in the world, all you got to do is get a populist government to win one time, then DOGE your government and the entire left simply vanishes. Isn't it interesting that now that the gravy train has been cut off, isn't it interesting that there were so many layoffs at all these various legacy media outlets? Joy Reid, Lester Holt, Jim Acosta, Chuck Todd, Don Lemon, even Rachel Maddow's staff has been slashed. I mean, we've never seen anything even remotely like this. And now we're seeing the whole web of NGOs like Soros's Open Society Foundations getting completely dismantled. Remember, Soros has actually had to basically stop all operations in Europe. It's incredible. I think Aesthetica said it best. Quote, what we're finding out in real time is the entire modern left is just smoke and mirrors. There is no left-wing voter base. All the elections are rigged and fake. All the liberal outlets, media outlets, have no audience and are kept alive by USAID funding. All their politicians and political pundits are paid by USAID to say what the government wants. The whole thing was a house of cards. We talked about this on one of our videos yesterday, but sociologists have actually long studied the characteristics that are exemplative of a dying social movement, right? You can actually recognize when a mass movement is dying. And when you compare those characteristics that sociologists have identified to what's happening right now with the Democrats, I mean, I think there's no other way of concluding, but the Democrat Party does look like it's in a death spiral right now. It's in a doom loop. I mean, first and foremost, dying social movements obviously experience a mass loss in membership, right? Which is exactly what we've been seeing with the Democrats over the last year, interestingly enough. Voter registration tallies in literally all 50 states show that while Republicans are gaining in voter registration, the Democrats are hemorrhaging. Over the course of the last year, in virtually every single state of the union, the Democrats have been experiencing a net loss of voter registration as compared to the Republicans. But in addition to a loss of participation, a dying social movement evidences, secondly, a significant reduction in public attention. Nobody pays it any attention anymore, meaning that the movement, of course, struggles to draw attention to its cause, and therefore it can't advance. And again, I think of what the entire nation has been seeing and witness to with all of these cringe political stunts and public relations embarrassments over the course of this week. It's a sign of desperation. It's a sign of a sense that nobody is paying them any attention anymore. But then thirdly, dying social movements become bereft of any real leadership. This is very interesting. So a movement simply cannot survive without viable, vital leadership, a leadership that galvanizes, organizes, and effectively represents and advances the movement and its causes. And it's widely recognized. The Democrats are completely leaderless at the moment. In fact, Tim Walz, if you don't remember, that was Kamala Harris's running mate on the ticket who got 15 minutes of fame. He was asked point blank on CNN, who's the leader of the Democrat Party right now? And he said he has no idea. He said he actually said the voters. I think the voters are the leaders of the party now. In other words, there is no leader. There is no head. So they nobody's paying them any attention. Their membership is drying up. They have no leadership. And then finally, dying social movements actually end up losing all relevance in terms of any viable issues, which we've already talked about extensively. We're going through a massive political paradigm shift where the liberal globalist consensus, as represented by the Democrats, is being replaced by a new supermajority centered on America First, MAGA populism, leaving the Democrats completely out in the cold. All of this is to say, gang, the outcomes from this week could not have possibly been more stark. It really was a tale of two cities, a tale of two politics. Trump and the Republicans are more powerful and stronger than ever before, all the while the Democrats have descended into absolute and total lunacy. Over to you, gang. Over to you. Let's hear what you got to say. As Josh and Mike assemble your questions and comments, we often talk about how we can maintain and build up the conservative way of life. And one crucial way of doing that is your routine, staying strong physically and mentally. It's not just about living longer. It's about living better, which starts with a good night's sleep. Now, I've been using Beam Dream every single night for a while now, and it's completely changed the way I sleep. I'm frankly a horrible sleeper. I've shared that with you guys. I have a hard time turning off my brain. But seriously, gang, ever since taking Dream, I literally crash. I fall asleep so fast. I sleep so deeply and soundly all throughout the night. Beam Dream is made with the highest quality sleep-promoting ingredients to help you unwind and get the deep sleep we all need and deserve. In fact, it's become a nightly ritual of mine that I look forward to every day. I love their brownie batter flavor. If I might make a suggestion, you got to try it. Plus, I never wake up feeling groggy the next morning. Instead, I feel rested and ready to give it my all, just like now, making a huge difference in how I show up every single day. So right now, you can save up to 35% off with my exclusive Beam Dream discount. Just click the link below or scan the QR code on the screen and use code TURLEY at checkout. It's time to stop letting sleepless nights hold you back. Transform your sleep and your day with Dream because you deserve it. Click on that link below or scan that QR code right now. All right, what do we got? What are some of the questions? We got Steve with the advent of America PAC and the relative old age of many Democrats. Do you think we may see a veto-proof majority in the near future in both the House and the Senate? So that is what Elon is going for. He wants a 60 strong Republican Senate. We may very well be able to get 55 as we stand right now. Sorry, I've got something in front of me here. We may get 55 right now. We've got 53 that look pretty safe. We've got 2 toss-ups, one in Michigan, one in Georgia. Brian Kemp's running for the seat in Georgia. He should win that easily. And then we'll see about Michigan. Michigan went for Trump by about 2 points. So that's definitely viable. And then we're looking at a pickup of 5 more seats. We certainly can get there. Again, what makes America PAC so exciting, that's, if people don't know, that's Elon's PAC. What makes it so exciting is they're gunning for that 60 supermajority, as it were. So yes, I do. I absolutely do, especially with also Trump having such strong support, his strongest support with voters under 40. That's huge. That's exactly where we want to be. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm getting older, all right? But we don't particularly care about how the boomers are voting anymore. I mean, we're going to get a good portion of them. But boomers tend to be much more prone to the establishment because it's the post-World War II consensus that they've grown up with and that they know. It's the FDR New Deal consensus. That's being unraveled for a more America First civilizationalist consensus. And the young voter under 40 is all for it. So it's really exciting. Hi, Q. Thank you for the pound sterling, sir. Gavin Newsom said, let's change the conversation. Because they're getting wrecked by it. I believe this is the Democrats' only play. They're going to try and memory hole the last 4 years. It's their only play. Yeah, they're going to try. The internet makes that very hard. You know, back in the day, you could do that. But now that's very, very complicated to do, given X and the ability that very popular platforms have of reminding us, you know, of what's on the internet. But I was interviewing Bridget Fedesi the other day, and she said something really fascinating. She said, yeah, the internet is this strange amalgamation of these two opposites, where whatever's up on the internet's there forever, while at the same time, you know, we can forget what happened in the past 24 hours like that. So it's both a place of permanence and forgetfulness. And I think the Democrats are trying to play into that. Unfortunately, I don't think Gavin Newsom's base or the other leaders in the party are allowing him to do it. Because the bottom line is the Democrats got taken over by this lunatic fringe who use wokeness as a veneer to try to protect their open borders policies, open borders going inward, going northward, as it were, with cheap migrant labor coming into the country, and then open borders going outward, where manufacturing and industrial jobs are sent overseas, with capital and finance reallocating around our gentrified cities, leaving suburban and rural areas, I should say more rural areas, highly unemployed. So I just, they're so wedded to that rhetoric, that woke rhetoric, that I don't know if they can even conceive of framing life differently. I mean, think of Sunny Hostin when she was confronted just a couple of days after the election with all the border counties and border districts in Texas that had voted reliably Democrat in every single election leading up to that suddenly defected and voted en masse for Trump. And she was questioned by one of her fellow members of The View, you know, what do you make of that? And Sunny Hostin said, well, it's misogyny did it. Misogyny and sexism. She couldn't even see how, it's open borders. They don't want all this fentanyl and these street gangs pouring into their neighborhoods with these porous borders. So they have a very hard time seeing through this veneer. We'll have to see if they can effectively do it. They may be able to do it. But bottom line, it seems to me that Trump is, over these 4 years, establishing a new, fundamentally new consensus, every bit as permanent as FDR's New Deal. And the Democrats are just going to have to come up with their own version of it. I honestly don't know what it is. It might be a Bernie Sanders version. I don't know. In Germany, they have the Die Linke Party in Eastern Germany, which is literally comes straight out of Eastern Germany communism. And they're for a full-blown welfare state, but they want closed borders. They are what we call welfare chauvinists. They only want welfare and social programs going to German citizens. Migrants are not allowed to get them. Illegal migrants, or even just temporary people who are there for the time being, they should not be allowed any social services whatsoever. So maybe it's something like that. Go hardcore on border security, but then supermax on welfare states and government benefits. That's a hard sell for Americans, as I'm sure you know, Q. It's Americans just tend to be, we've got this kind of, government bag. We want to keep it small. And especially with all the waste and fraud and abuse that's being uncovered, it's a very difficult sell as well. So I thought about it. I don't know what the Democrats are going to do. They'll come up with something, but in the meantime, I'm with you. I think all they can do is memory hole this stuff. Richard, Dr. Steve, I know I saw a show earlier today that Missouri AG has asked DOJ to look into the allegation that all but one of Biden's EO's pardons, etc., were signed by AutoPen. Oh, that's interesting. Any thoughts? I have not. That's the first I heard of it. Richard, we'll have to take a look. I'm getting a sense they're starting to do a lot of investigations in the last 4 years. And again, I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg of just how corrupt our system became. You have to remember the first year or two of the Biden administration, they thought Trump was gone. They thought he was forever cooked. And then when the Republicans didn't do very well in the midterms, or not as well as we had hoped, because we're dealing now with no to low prop voters, which is going to be an issue. We're going to have to figure that out and think through strategically how we're going to have the mass get out the vote operation in the midterms. But they really thought, by November of 2022 that they were in the permanent majority for the foreseeable future. Trump was gone. Republican Party were, leaderless and wayward, and that they wouldn't have to worry about a thing of their corruption ever getting exposed. And so I think the corruption ratcheted up. It went overtime, got put on steroids. And I'm getting a sense now that the FBI, Pam Bondi, and the Justice Department, they're going to start engaging in significant investigations over the last 4 years. So we'll see. We'll see if that's part of it. Carl, remembering when Marjorie Taylor Greene was not allowed in committees, I saw a remark where the same was possible for all those who did not clear the wall for yesterday's censure reading. Do you think this could possibly? Do you think this could possible for those who did not, or would this be possible? Oh yeah, no. I think Mike Johnson showed the country he will most certainly enforce the decorum rules of Congress. Democrats just keep breaking decorum. There is no tradition, there is no precedent that Democrats don't feel in their woke lunacy perfectly justified in breaking. Whenever you knock down a fence, you always have to ask the question, why was that fence up in the first place? So I think he should. I don't know if he will, but I do think he should make an example, at least out of a handful of those who refuse to clear the well. Yeah, I would like to see that. Bert, morning, Dr. Steve. What do you think the effect on the EU economy would be if the USA closed all bases in Europe? Wow. Well, it's not going to help. That's for sure. I mean, you got 100,000 troops in Europe, at least, in the UK and Germany and France, or Germany, Spain, and Italy. I'd have to think that through. I don't know if there's been a study on that, especially too if tariffs start kicking in as well. Yeah, it's not going to help. I mean, bottom line is, I understand it. This is the only reason why NATO exists. NATO has just become, a slush fund. It's a piggy bank for the powers that be, and it keeps corporate interests, particularly those connected with the military-industrial complex, very well oiled and very happy, which then gives the politicians very, very nice, fat, happy donations, checks. So, bottom line, I think if the United States withdrew and NATO collapsed, I mean, well, you saw that from Brussels the other day. I mean, the leaders are freaking out. They don't know what to do. They tried to vote to have a full aid package to Ukraine, and the vote failed. Slovakia wants nothing to do with it. Hungary wants nothing to do with it. Giorgia Meloni seems to be playing both sides of the fence. I don't know what her strategy is. Macron is talking tough, even talking about, sort of this nuclear deterrent for Ukraine. In the end, I just think these 7 decades of where the security of Europe and the riches that came with that being manned solely and monopolistically by the United States is clearly evidencing a vacuum once it's pulled back, for which European leaders just have really no good solutions for. They don't know what to do. I've never seen a group of people look so frazzled and so confused. I mean, again, the rhetoric is so strong and to the point, and we're going to give an arms aid to Ukraine, and we're going to pick up the slack, and we're the leaders of the free world now. And then they vote, and it's a mess. And then they say one thing 1 hour, and then the next hour you get saying, well, no, we didn't really mean that. We do want the United States to continue to be the architect of European security. It's insane. I think we all see it. I think we all know it. I think we all see it. And the more honest of European leaders recognize it. The days of America managing the security of Europe are coming to an end. That seems to be very clear. That's just baked into the cake of a rising civilizationalist world. And Europe is going to have to claim its civilizational sphere. But in order to do so, it is going to have to turn its back on this liberal globalist consensus, which is dying by the day. Terry, I have to ask again about Virginia. A better candidate stepped forward to enter the GOP primary for governor. How could former Senator Amanda Chase, now of Appomattox County, get some of that love from America PAC to secure the governorship and flip the House of Delegates? It's a great question, Terry. I mean, she's obviously going to have to she's going to have to make her case. I don't know. I mean, how dug in is support for Winsome Sears? To be honest, I have not been following the Virginia governor's race. I know it's off year, this and New Jersey coming up in November, and we've got a Supreme Court, if I recall, race in Wisconsin. So we've got some important races here. So, but I have to admit I have to catch up on that. So let us know in the comments or in the chat what the current state of play is for Virginia. I did not know that Winsome Sears got the mantle, as it were. She was handed the mantle. I thought they needed to have a primary, and she could battle it out with other candidates. And you want to pick the best, most vibrant candidate, get Glenn Youngkin's endorsement, then get, of course, his entire network that he's built up, the machine that he's building up, that's very, very strong, strongest one we've seen for Republicans in 20 years in Virginia. And let's make a go of it. Absolutely. And let's try to keep the governor's mansion in Virginia. I'd like to see the same thing in New Jersey as well. The problem you have, of course, is when you have an encroaching dominance of one political party over the course of several years, the bench can end up suffering for the minority party. We're seeing it with the Democrats right now. So, I just hope you guys have a good bench in Virginia. So, but let's keep an eye on that for Terry. Amanda F. Chase, and let's make sure she gets some notice, and let's get her. Let's do some primary debates, and let's find the best candidate for Virginia's gubernatorial elections coming up. I'd love to see what's going on in Jersey as well. Eric the Red. But even more fun request I expect we'll all enjoy. Don't look it up just yet, but do you already know Rachel Maddow's birthday? I'm hoping not, because I want you to take a moment to think one by one over the 12 months, which day of the year it might be, until you go, ah, yes, best poetic justice ever. It's not J6. It's not J6. Hence, neither Halloween nor Christian holiday. Well, J6 is a holiday, right? J6 is Epiphany. When you have your educated guests react, tell us. Then look it up and react even more. All right, I'm gonna hold off. I'm gonna look that up, and I want you guys to put it in the chat if you found it. Rachel Maddow's birthday, and apparently it is sweet irony. It is poetic justice like never before. I will just, let's see. You're kidding me. How did you find that out? Eric the Red, that's brilliant, dude. How did you find that freaking out? All right, I'm not going to say it. Everybody look it up, and then you can put it in the chat. Oh, that's great, man. That's just too cool. Love it. Love you, Eric. Franz, good morning, Dr. Steve. When describing the Harris campaign, we briefly touched on the term devoidism. Would that be an accurate description of what we saw from the left this week? Yeah, devoidism. Yeah, that's a good term. I got to write that down and use that. It is devoidism. I got a couple of interviews today. Maybe I'll bring that up. I love phrases that frame, or a term that frames, as you guys know. I mean, it's kind of live off that capital, but sociological terms that frame what's going on and make connections with all these other dynamics. That's what the channel's all about. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Yeah, it is devoidism. I mean, that's the criticism we're hearing everywhere. We're getting it from Politico. We're getting it from the New York Times. We're getting it from Harry Enton. We're getting it from Frank Luntz. We're getting it joyfully and cheerfully from Scott Jennings. They just don't have anything. If you think about what's the Democrats' platform right now? If I ask you, what does Trump stand for? If I asked anyone, whether you loved him or hate him, they could give me a litany. Even the hardcore haters could give me a Project 2025, trying to gut the government and replace it with all these Christian theocrats, these Christian nationalists, and then he's trying to enrich himself and Elon. At least they could tell us what they're about, or had their own idea of what they're about. Whereas I don't think any Democrat. If I said, what are the Democrats for? Well, they're for helping people. They're for making your life easier. There's no specific plan. There's no specific program. There's no specific policy that they could put. Not even. Remember Kamala, an opportunity economy? Can anyone still, at any point, even remotely explain what that was? Apart from just platitudes. So yeah, they are devoid. But what it really is? Look, we know what they're for. If we wanted to get rid of the void, we know what they're for. They're for open. They're for the liberal globalist consensus. They're for open borders. They're for shipping jobs overseas to maximize the bottom line for their corporate donors. And they're for wokeness that crushes free speech to suppress any dissent and criticism of those first two policies. That's what they're for. That's in effect what the whole of the liberal globalist consensus is. It's a consensus among our globalist elite. And the people have turned against it. And in an 80-20 ratio, they're for closing the border, mass deportations, reciprocal tariffs, bringing manufacturing back home. They're for declaring there's only two genders, getting rid of DEI, restoring free speech, locking up criminals, getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. They're all, I mean, how do you argue against any of that? And you can't. And so what you try to do is you make it all about Trump, and you get some angry old man with a cane, ratchet old man. I'm a crooked man. You know, it's insane. They've got nothing. And you just have to sit there and watch. And I mean, certainly butter the popcorn and eat it and just go, wow, I didn't realize they would melt down this bad. I didn't realize it was going to get this cringe. I didn't realize they were all going to get a lapel mic and sit down and go, oh, that's BS. Here, Trump hasn't done anything for anybody. He's not doing anything for your groceries, not doing anything for the price of eggs. And then all of a sudden you realize 22 senators are reading off the same freaking script and actually choreographing physically themselves in the same way. Nothing's authentic about these people. Everything has been managerialized. Everything has been professionalized. Everything has been centralized. It's standardized. And nobody's buying it. That, and again, say what you want about Trump, he is authentic. All right, who came up? Who knows? Who knows? Oh, we're getting word here, Mike, our producer. According to Eric Dougherty, Scott Jennings is getting a raise at CNN. Oh, he's the only one. He's the only one that anyone tunes in for. All the others are just, you know, they're basically beige wall. They're just in the background. They literally are background music. It's Scott Jennings is the only one, both I think liberal and conservative people tune in. There you go. Chip the Enlightened. He did it. April 1st. Rachel Maddow's birthday. It's April 1st. Queen of the Fools. Yes. Queen of the Fools. Oh my gosh. That's just too good. All right, what else we got? Phoebe, question. California elections are rigged from top to bottom. Can you give us more details on how we could get help from Trump? Now, I just talked, check out the interview I did with Seth Keshel, the election modeler, yesterday. Actually, yeah, it might be up, I think, later on today. Let me know, Micah, if it is. It was on last night on our live stream, Thursday night. And usually we put it up again just as a standalone the next day or over the weekend. But he has some suggestions of what to do. And he does believe that President Trump can, through executive authority, through EOs, he thinks he can usher in basic standards of election integrity and accountability, but it is going to get challenged by California and blue states. So it may get hung up in the courts for a while. But he thinks, Elon has come out and said paper ballots, electronic voting needs to be banned because it's just too susceptible to being tapped into and rigged. He wants paper ballots. He wants, obviously, voter ID, voter registration. Seth Keshel's going up today. Yeah. Check that interview out. I think you'll find there's a lot of really informative, very rich and informative data that he gives on what can be done. But that's basic. Trump can put forward some basic protocol for election integrity. He's most likely going to do that given what he went through in 2020. But it is going to get challenged in the courts, and it comes down to how long it's going to take for the Supreme Court to rule decisively on it, most likely in Trump's favor. We'll see, though. We'll see, because again, 10th Amendment elections are generally done at the local level, and it's an issue almost entirely in the hands of state legislatures. Not even the governor can really get in the way of elections and how they the date, time, and manner in which an election takes place. But if if California is so obviously corrupt, as we all know they are, and Washington and Oregon, all the deep blue states, if they are so obviously corrupt, well, then that disenfranchises the civil rights of citizens in states like Texas and Tennessee and Florida, who are, Micah said just after this live stream is finished, they're going to be putting it up, in Florida, who are having their vote in effect nullified by fraud. So they're doing what they're supposed to do. They have clean voter rolls and the like, but then you guys over here in California have all this fraud. That disenfranchises me as a Texas citizen because I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but then my vote ends up getting, at least at an electoral level, nullified by your fraud. So it's going to come down to some bold moves on Trump's part that can hopefully be that can hopefully then be made permanent through legislation. It's harder. I don't know if voting comes under the reconciliation clause where they only need 51. They only need a simple majority of vote. Anything that has to do with, well, right now, judges and the economy, taxes, and the like, budget issues only need 51%. But if not, the filibuster's in play. So the Democrats, like they did with men competing in women's sports, they can filibuster it and just not give them the 60 votes to get it out of committee or to get it for a full vote. Gordon, Dr. Steve, do we know the status of the $300 to $400 million lawsuit from Letitia James? Wasn't on appeal? I would love to see it overturned for another win versus lawfare. Great question, Gordon. I have to admit that fell through the cracks for me. I don't remember. I've not come across anything on that. So keep us updated if anybody knows. Steve, do you think that we could get a movement in the country to go away from popular election of senators to a more electoral college arrangement inside the state where a candidate would be required to win a simple majority of electors, thereby diluting the impacts of large urban areas that tend to vote Democrat? That's a good question. I mean, that's going back to the way we used to do it. I haven't heard, the only problem I have with that is I haven't heard any proposal. It's not even being debated. It seems to be, it's a peripheral issue right now. Could we get a movement in the country? Yeah, sure. I mean, anything's possible. It's the golden age, right? So, but that's going to take some work. It's going to be hard to take voting out of the hands of people. It's going to be hard. Once people now have the prerogative to be able to vote for their senators, it's going to be a very hard thing to take out of their hands. You would have to make an argument like that. Like, well, we'll never see another liberal senator in Georgia again. We'll never see another liberal senator in, what would be another place, like Arizona again. Right. So you could make the argument there. But right now, just the voter registration trends are such that Democrats are just going so far behind. They're falling so far behind right now. I don't know. The momentum just seems to be all with the Republicans. We'll see how long they can keep it up. I mean, we're going to keep track of it every month. That's one of the benefits of being part of this channel. Make sure you smack that bell and subscribe button if you've not. But if you're part of this channel, we will always be keeping every month track of voter registration trends, because right track, wrong track, presidential approval, and voter registration trends are the three key characteristics for the three predictive measures for midterm elections. So we'll be keeping a very close eye on that. Bob, it appears that Amy Coney Barrett is another in a long line of SCOTUS disappointments. Would you agree? Yeah, Barnes never liked her. Barnes never once thought Amy Coney Barrett was a conservative. Now, I mean, in fairness, she did vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. If she were just another Kennedy, Anthony Kennedy, she would never have ever have done anything even remotely like that. So, so she just seems to be a mixed bag. Yeah, and again, it just seems to me that law, and I see it. My daughter's in the legal world. Law is radically liberal. The left, the what do you want to call it? Political class, gentry liberal left has just taken over the legal system. So yeah, it was very disappointing what she did with the USAID. By the way, another federal judge did come in. All they did, that vote. So the Supreme Court, quote, upheld a lower court's order forcing USAID to pay out $2 billion owed to contractors for work that they had already performed. But it's very important to understand it was a procedural ruling, not a merits ruling. So Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett opted to side with the three libs again, right? But not in an issue of merit. They didn't decide it just on an issue of procedure, that they believe it had not gone through the proper appellate procedure as of yet. Now, a federal judge has come in just within like the last 17 hours, 18 hours, as I understand it, and ruled that a USAID does not have to pay out that $2 billion. So this is what they're wanting to play out. We'll have to see how they vote in a final decision on merit. But yeah, that said, Amy Coney Barrett she's definitely been a disappointment. There's no question. I'm just sick and tired of it. But unfortunately, it is the 70-year liberal consensus lagging into the new civilizationalist age. We will get a fully right-wing, very nationalist populist Supreme Court that understands law in a more civilizational sense than this silly little liberal globalist sense. We'll get it, but it just may take longer than we ever imagined. Unfortunately, could take a century when all said and done. Roe v. Wade took 40 years to overturn, but it did happen. So to me, we can't forget that. But yes, Amy Coney Barrett has been a disappointment in many cases. Marilyn Degatti, good to hear from you, my friend. I'm worried about Europe sending troops and giving Ukraine security without membership. I'm worried about World War III. Is there any hope? Yeah, no, I'm with you, Marilyn. Yeah, there is hope, and that's the dysfunctionality of Brussels. So that's going to be your hope. Yeah, in the end, I think the hope is that eventually military advisors come in and say, this is insane. This is stupid. We don't want to do this. This is insane. This is stupid. Look, I mean, the calculus to this is simple. It's not hard. If Russia's incursion into Ukraine was caused by NATO eastward expansion, okay, I believe it was, but I just want to make sure we understand the logic. If Russia's incursion into Ukraine was caused by NATO's eastward expansion, and if Europe decides to, without the United States, continue to expand eastward with NATO, how does that end? If Russia's aggression was in response, as Putin has unilaterally and uniformly, unanimously said for literally the last, 15 years since 2007 Munich Council speech. He has said no eastward NATO expansion, no Ukraine, period. That's the red line. If NATO eastward expansion is the reason why Russia has engaged in a military conflict, and if European leaders decide they want to continue with eastward NATO expansion, how does that end? It ends exactly, Marilyn, exactly as you put it. It ends with World War III. Well, technically, I guess it's World War III if the United States gets involved. That's technically the two Cold War powers actually getting into a hot war. That's how it ends, though. It ends with more war. There's no other way around it. This is what makes Pocahontas clapping like a seal so patently absurd. You have to turn Putin into a desperate despot who just wants to reconstruct the Soviet empire. You have to turn him into that absurd caricature to even remotely galvanize the support to continue to push NATO eastward. And I think European generals will sit down with these absurdly mindless, idiotic leaders and say, this is a fool's errand. This is a fool's errand. We don't buy the propaganda you're pushing on the public. This is a fool's errand. Bottom line, this is great power politics. We're encroaching on Russia's hegemony. Great powers do not allow for any peer competitor by definition. We wouldn't allow them in our space. They don't allow us in their space. If we engage in military engagement in Ukraine, we are bringing NATO right into their hegemon. And we ain't seen nothing yet if we do that. It's only going to escalate things. And and Russia can keep going up the escalation ladder. I mean, well, they're both nuked. I mean, you've got our nukes on there. Europe's got plenty of nukes. Russia's got plenty of nukes. So again, that frustrates the escalation ladder. So I just think in the end, cooler heads will prevail that are inside the military, and explain to them, war game it out, and say there's no good ending to this. So let's just take Trump's lead. Let's put an end to this thing. And then the minerals deal would have been perfect, because it tried to turn the sort of the DMZ zone, the front lines of both the Russian and Ukrainians right now around the Donbass region and so forth, tried to turn into a prosperity sphere, because the minerals are equally on the side of the Russian occupied part of Ukraine as they are the Ukrainian side. So if you just brought in investors and land right contracts and this whole American and European and international investors all mining minerals in that what is now a DMZ zone, it would by its nature turn it into a place of peace. Russia would not want to. That would deter Russia from invading and incurring any further property, any further land, if it meant killing American investors and workers and so on. So, but it wouldn't be NATO. There would be no weapons there either. So this is kind of the brilliance of the minerals deal that Democrats convinced Zelensky to chuck. So yes, I do think there's hope, and I think the hope is going to be in your military leaders who are going to give a very realist assessment of what's happening. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, the outcry from people about the Democrat babies not standing for a young cancer survivor was the last straw. Could that be the final nail in their coffin, that they don't win the Senate or House or presidency for 20 years? Yeah, well, I mean, so Republicans are going to have to continue to keep that embarrassment front and center before people. I doubt that. I doubt it will still have the persuasive power, the counter persuasive power that it has now. I think most people saw that as really beyond bad taste. I mean, they really saw that as beyond petty and characteristic of a party that hates Trump so much that they have become hateful. They no longer have the ability to discern good things, even if it's coming in the guise of Trump. So, but whether they'll be able to keep that sentiment of disgust long enough into the midterm, probably not, but they can build on it. And they can say, do you remember this time? Well, they're doing it again, and they're doing it again, and they're doing it again, that kind of thing. MAGA 24 ever, Dr. Steve. Whatever incriminating information is uncovered through Epstein files or through DOGE uncovering corruption, I'm certain that both Democrats and Republicans will be exposed. Do you believe that Trump will equally go after both, regardless of party, or spare the Republicans and treat them in a manner less punishing? Well, politics is about punishing your enemies and rewarding your friends. And I guess in the end, it just comes down to whether or not the Republicans exposed are ready to become Trump's best friend. If they are, he will give them special treatment. I know that might sound, but you can't do that, son. No, but that's politics. Politics is about power. It's not about ideology. Ideology means nothing unless you have power. Politics is fundamentally about power. And so if he uses politics in the Carl Schmittian sense of punishing your enemies and rewarding your friends. And those Republicans want to make sure that they are absolutely I mean, imagine if they found dirt. I'm not saying they are, but imagine if they found dirt on someone like Lisa Murkowski. It could be that either her political career is forever destroyed and buried, or suddenly she is the most MAGA person on the planet, right? So which is it? So Bert, hello, Dr. Steve. What are your thoughts on refunds from confirmed DOGE money? I feel like 30% for taxpayers and the rest to pay off the debt. Brilliant. I love it. I love it. I think everyone should get some money back because, again, it's a reminder, number one, that it's our money. And then number two, that it's our money that they are wasting and that they've been wasting. So treating the government treating our taxes like an investment and then paying back investors. Again, it's not an all or nothing thing. We can pay off the debt in increments. But I think it's brilliant. I like what you do. The 70-30 split sounds great. And they're already talking about something like $5,000 per taxpayer. That's brilliant. That's phenomenal. And again, I think you're looking at the very real possibility of Republican supermajorities, because again, it's a reminder, this is your money, not ours. And your money was wasted by these Democrats on all this silliness and nonsense. We're giving it some back to you, and the rest is going off to pay off the debt. Brilliant. Here's some back for you to help with those eggs, to help with cost of living, because you need it. And we're going to take that 70%, the other 70%, and pay off the debt. Love it. I think it's a win-win. Eric the Red. Trump equals Perot 2.0. Yeah, I do. I think so. Who was I talking about this with the other day? I had an interview, and he brought up how much he missed Perot because he loved the Perot's turn of phrase. Again, very Matlock-like, very John Kennedy-like, Scott Jennings-like. Yeah, Ross Perot. So that's where. So for me, that's where it all starts in my analysis. So you've got, and it's not just my analysis. I mean, it's all over the place in terms of studies of the rise of nationalist populism. But you've got the fall of the Soviet Union in December of 1991. And it's right around this time that Francis Fukuyama, 92, is writing The End of History, where, oh, look at now, liberal globalism, liberal progressivism, that's the wave of the future. Now that this communism is gone, the one true one-size-fits-all political and economic system, liberal globalism, has emerged triumphant, and all the world is going to go in that direction. But at the same time, in, I believe, 92, Sam Huntington of Harvard University first published an article, and then it got turned into a full-blown book, The Clash of Civilizations, where he argued, no, you don't get it. What happened with the fall of the Soviet Union was not the fall of communism. It was the fall of a one-size-fits-all ideology for the planet. And more populations are rejecting one-size-fits-all ideology. Because the 20th century, all the conflicts centered around ideology, one-size-fits-all ideologies, right? So it was fascism versus communism versus liberalism. Then it was communism versus liberalism. And then liberalism remained ascendant. But all the clashes around the world, Korea, Vietnam, World War II, you name it, they were all primarily, they were all centered on ideology, the major clashes. Whereas now we're moving into an era of identity. And so that's what he meant by clash of civilizations. Not that the civilizations were going to fight, but simply that when we have clashes in the 21st century, they're going to be around identity. They're going to be around tribe and culture and religion and region, and the like, race, you name it. So this is all happening in 1992. Now, of course, he turned out to be correct. Well, who challenges George Herbert Walker Bush for the nomination in 1992? Who ascends as a real political force? It's not Ross Perot. Who does it first? Put it in the chat. Who knows? It's another P. It's Pat Buchanan. Pat Buchanan first ascends in 1992. and starts ciphering a very good portion, 20-30% of the Republican Party over his way. Now, he eventually endorsed Bush back in the Houston convention, Republican convention. But Ross Perot kind of picked up that mantle that was temporarily placed down by Pat Buchanan. Now, he didn't have the full. Pat Buchanan was trying to bring pro-lifers together with the working class, and there was tremendous overlap between the two, and they didn't want things like NAFTA and GATT and these trans-Pacific trade situations that would all get solidified under Clinton. But it all starts in the early 90s. As a matter of fact, a lot of archaeofuturism from Guillaume Faye comes from the early 1990s. I think around this time, around 1992. There's a lot of really interesting sort of meta theories that come right around the time of the fall of the Soviet Union. So Ross Perot represented the 20% of the country that was ready to say enough of these two parties. Let's go a third way that says enough with global division of labor, that, it's ready to close our borders. At least at that time, it was with taking manufacturing and industrial jobs from our working base and sending them off to third world countries, for example, the global south. So yeah, Ross Perot really was the beginning of it. He tried it again in 96. Less of an impact there. Again, I think that was more the man. And we were also doing pretty well. It was post 2 years after the Gingrich Revolution. That was able to harness, I think, a lot of that populist sentiment. The Tea Party movement came back in 2010, very, very similar. So, yeah, I think the Buchananite Perot paradigm of 92 was the Trump, what really was the impetus. It was the prototype for MAGA and America First of 2016, which itself was a prototype for the full MAGA America First to break through in 2024. So again, these things take time. That's an important point. These things do take time. We're talking about a new conservative age rising. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. It goes, and it's like a roller coaster. It has ups, it has downs, and all that sort of stuff. So, but here we are, 30 years later, and we're witnessing, I think, at least a very, I would say, virtually all of Ross Perot's people, were they alive now, and Perot himself would all be fully 100% MAGA. Rockcore, Dr. Steve, in reference to my hegemon and their spheres of influence question for South America and Africa last week. Oh, yeah. I was thinking Brazil for Northern South America, Argentina for Chile, Paraguay, and Southern South America, Egypt for Northern and Eastern Horn of Africa, South Africa for Southern Africa, Nigeria for Ivory Coast, Morocco for Northwest Africa. Yeah, no, I mean, again, you're thinking in terms of the great power politics. So who are the big power players in the region that are able to, almost like in a solar kind of sense, get all of these planets around them, as it were, to revolve around them economically, politically, all united by culture. So it's a world within a world. And I think you got it. Brazil for Northern South America. Yeah, Brazil kind of stands on its own, but it is Portuguese, right? So it doesn't. I don't know how well it translates to Latin America as a whole. Whereas I would see Argentina, definitely Chile, Paraguay, and Southern South America. Yeah, I could see that. Argentina definitely, certainly under Javier Milei. Egypt for Northern and Eastern Horn of Africa. Yeah, I don't see Egypt. I mean, again, I'm looking at population too. Same with Argentina. So I think is Egypt 100 mil? Let me just check. I think it is, or just shy. Egypt population. Yeah, 114 mil. Yeah, I don't think there's another state in northern Africa that can compete with that. So they're gonna have the economic and most likely military prowess for a power block in northern Africa and align. I mean, that wasn't that what was his name? Nasser's plan to try to create a pan-Arab union centered around Egypt. And then Nigeria, I could see Nigeria certainly with population, they're supposed to hit 400 mil by 2050. Now whether Ivory Coast, Central Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, I guess we should call it. Yeah, it remains to be seen. It's going to be who is the economic and military powerhouse, bottom line. And then if you had to choose between those two, who's the military powerhouse? Because in the end, bombs win, unfortunately. And then, South Africa will have to see. South Africa is going through a lot of turmoil right now as they're going through this radical tribalization that's happening there with Julius Malema. We'll have to see what happens with him. He may end up becoming their next president. So, yeah, it's great. No, I think, ROT, you're thinking right in terms of great power politics. William O'Toole, Dr. Steve, allow me to vent. Americans are frustrated by cash and Bondi, especially since now they are moving the goalposts by squelching info we Americans are entitled to. What are they hiding from the United States? Another nation's intelligence, CIA conspiracy? Your thoughts? Thank you. It's frustrating. I know. It was. I think, the way I explained it to you guys is it felt like it was our first L in like 40 days. We went like 40 days straight, not a single loss, winning. And then boom, 1 week ago today, a big L. It was a big goose egg, or I think it was supposed to come out on that Thursday, the day before. And it felt like, oh, now we're 40-1. It was a self-inflicted loss. Democrats weren't even a part of it. It was just a PR loss. It was just bad. I don't know what they're hiding. I don't know what's behind it. They say this, they say that. Well, we have to redact national security secrets in there. Now, when did freaking Jeffrey Epstein have access to national security secrets? What the heck? You're making it worse. Now, what is that? What's that about, right? So you're only widening the intrigue. I don't know what's going on, to be honest with you. I don't know, but Pam's got egg on her face right now. There's no way around it. I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. I give this cabinet the benefit of the doubt, and we're on their side, but they got a lot of, as Desi Arnaz would say, they got a lot of explaining to do. And I don't know. James, this massive waste of money shows that we didn't need more money for road, schools, homelessness, etc. The Dems have nothing left to show their value to the voters. That's a great point. That's a very, very good point. All of this waste shows we didn't need to raise taxes, to raise your investment, to increase our investment in our kids and our schools and so forth. Name me a year that the teachers unions haven't asked for a pay raise. You didn't need pay raises. You didn't need more money. You didn't need to raise our taxes. You were wasting our money. Brilliantly put. I love it. Deborah, if the Supreme Court's ruling to uphold a district judge's stop on executive power narrowly focus on paying contracts, can President Trump obey that section, then continue to stop the other payments going out? Yeah. What now? Again, that, as I understand it, that ruling did get overturned. So that lower court's ruling got overturned. USAID funds can be squelched. He does not have to pay those out. But yeah, there's all kinds of ways Trump can get around this stuff. That's why it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers other people. I mean, again, okay, we'll pay out that $2 billion in 6 months, in 8 months. Oh, because there's a lot of bureaucracy we're going through. Sorry, we're going through a lot. We're just revamping the government. We'll try to have. Oh, did we miss that deadline? Did we miss? Okay, well, sue us again. Go ahead and sue it, and then we'll do it again. Okay, all right, good. You sued us, took you 6 months. Okay, right, we'll do it. And all right, oops, did we miss another deadline? So look, you can hide behind all kinds of bureaucratic obstacles. That's what Trump is doing. It's his government. This is his executive branch. And so they're having fun with it in many ways. It is frustrating because we do not want to see judicial interference in executive power. It is a breach of the division of powers. But, in terms of the actual outworking of things, it still works out pretty much the same. Or it may just take longer than we want in terms of DOGE being able to fully implement all the cuts that we're looking forward to. Mitchell, how hard would it be for DOGE to make federal cuts with the Supreme Court ruling? Is there a way Trump could fight further rulings to stop him from cutting spending? I mean, in the end, it doesn't seem to be frustrating them that much. They're going ahead, identifying the waste, fraud, and abuse. They are separating that from the general expenditures that are legit and are going out. And then the separated amount, which is now hundreds of billions of dollars, is getting sued for. So you've got all these left-wing special interest groups that are suing to get their hands on all this money that's been set apart. To my knowledge, no one's got a dime thus far. And what you're getting is these activist rogue federal judges, unelected federal judges appointed for life, acting as dictators, saying, yeah, you have to give up that $2 billion. You have to give up that $3 billion. And all the Trump administration says is, well, then we'll go through the appellate process and we'll go to the next one. Now, the hand they're trying to force is they're trying to get the Supreme Court to decide now on the issue of whether federal judges have this right. 4 judges on the Supreme Court right now are all for. This is insane. Of course they don't. But unfortunately, Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts, being the weasels that they are going back to process and saying, well, it hasn't gone through the whole appellate process yet. And once it goes through the whole appellate process, then we'll take a look and we'll render our decision in June. So it's like you're dealing with Ents. Remember from the Lord of the Rings, the tree guys, Treebeard, don't be hasty now, Mr. Hobbit. That's what you're dealing with this ridiculous judicial procedure that invades and gets in the way of what should be a very rapid executive response. So anyway, there you go. Yes, there's all kinds of administrative obstacles, bureaucratic obstacles that Trump can put up from it. Bobby Jack, how likely is it the Democratic brand is going the way of Sears? I love that. Democratic brand is going the way of Sears. Once huge, now very, very minor. Well, again, this is the concern. Politics is about power. And the power of the people is the voting majority. Now, granted, this is assuming that there's some integrity in the voting booth, as it were. And it looks like from last November, we saw you can be too big to rig. If Trump has tapped into a new supermajority, if the Republicans are smart, they go full JD and they expand that supermajority, America First supermajority, and the Democrats continue to be stupid, then they're just going to find themselves consistently on the side of the 20%. And the 20% is not going to get you into power. It's not going to get you back into power. There's no way around it. I don't think there's any. Talk about too big to rig. So, if they're not careful, they can go the way of the Whigs. And then what happens, one thing I didn't bring up because I didn't think it was applicable quite yet, but so you've got these characteristics of social movements dying. So, right. So one is membership starts declining. They don't get anybody's attention anymore. Nobody really takes them that seriously. They don't have any leaders and they don't have any issues. Well, another one is the infighting starts. And so that generally ends the movement. We saw that with the Whigs. The infighting starts. And the movement it's various factions and leaders start fighting each other. And then that's it. The movement blows apart. And then it usually breaks up into a couple different sub-movements. And that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting to see Democrats actually going after each other and seeing sort of this. This is what I was focusing on. This is what I was so excited about. Excited is probably a bad term, but with the pro-Israeli liberal versus the pro-Palestinian progressive, and that very real civil war that was opening up within the Democratic Party, I think helped defeat them in November. But it seems to have quelled a bit. But those are the makings of something that could absolutely rupture that political party. Forced a number of pro-Israeli liberals to go over to the MAGA side. They've just said enough. I don't want to have anything to do with this insanity. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, if the Trump agenda succeeds by, say, only 51%, low number I know, is that enough to ensure the Democrat plantation is cast to the ash heap of history? 51's kind of small. I hear you. I mean, a majority is a majority, but no, I see 51's a little too small. We need it bigger. I think we need a good 55, 56% majority. Then we're probably pretty good. We're going to be okay. It's going to be very hard for them to overturn that. Deborah, when you take the Elixir Mixer, have you been able to stop some other supplements, or do you add it to vitamin D, C, zinc, magnesium? I add. So just so you know, in my biohacking, I am no expert, but I add. So I do the Elixir Mixer, and then I also take vitamin D. I take vitamin C. I do zinc. I think I don't take zinc separately, but I know it's in one of my supplements. And I do magnesium. I'm actually sipping a very nice magnesium supplement right now in a liquid form with lots of minerals and so forth. So yeah, I do. What I do with the Elixir Mixer is I like to do it as an afternoon snack kind of. And also I'll have it in the later afternoon. I take my other supplements in the morning and I do the Elixir Mixer in the mid-afternoon. Just feels great. I love it. Davros, Dr. Turley, you're a great American. Right back at you, my friend. Just for fun, if the Democrats paid you millions of dollars to save them, what strategy would you recommend for them? You know, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this because I want to at least try to even anticipate what they're going to try to do. All right. The best I came up with, and it's not very good, is the Die Linke model in Germany. So it'd be basically a total closed border, mass deportation Bernie Sanders. That's the best I could kind of come up with. Because all the super awesome entrepreneurial capitalists are all on Trump's side right now. So you can't go there. Right, the tech right, the richest man on the planet's with Trump. Zuckerberg's gone with Trump. Jeff Bezos is going with Trump. They're all going with Trump now. Crypto's going with Trump, right? With the new Bitcoin reserve, what do we just buy up 200,000 more Bitcoin? Apparently, we see some of that. Some of these kind of like, suspect like crypto. I think a lot of that crypto was seized in like drug operations, so forth. Whatever. So you can't really go like the free market libertarian route, especially not with DOGE, right? With Javier Milei's chainsaw being the symbol of DOGE right now. So I think you just got to go full socialist, and you got to appeal to, granted, a small, but it's still a very sizable group of Democrats that are very, very attracted to Bernie Sanders socialism. But you got to get rid of the open borders. I don't think another open borders politician could ever win again. I think those days are over. You got to get rid of the global division of labor. Bernie would have, I think, no problem with that, though he's easily bought and paid for. After Maha, it's going to be very hard to go with the big pharma that Bernie has been so in bed with. But I think if you could find Trump, border security, and combine that with like a hardcore socialism, believe it or not, I think that might actually appeal to a lot of people on the left, or just who are working class or white, non-white working class. They might be very comfortable with that. But that's the best I can come up with. Other than that, Trump has stolen all. You can't go full globalist again. You can't do open borders. You can't do global division of labor and wokeness. We want to bring trans back into women's sports. No one's going to be talking. I mean, if they are, they're going to lose by 80 points. So that's it. That's the best I came up with. Yeah, sad, I know, but that's the best I came up with. Bernie Sanders and border security. That's basically it. Now pay me my million. Perot, hello, Dr. Steve. Who's the leader of the Democrat Party? I feel none of the above would get the most vote. There is none. There's absolutely, there's no one even close to being a leader right now in the Democrat Party. They've got no bench. They're shot. And it's one of the key signs that a social movement is dying. Jeff Reed, hello, Dr. Steve. It's all good and dandy, but when will we see some actual accountability? I know we've talked about that. The indictment stage of the dismantling of the administrative state has yet to be. So we'll see. I do not have any inside track on that. That's Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. Now, apparently, again, there have been some arrests made. I don't know if you call it from within the FBI of some shenanigans happening. But again, it's no major, player in the public square. Anthony, basking in all the winning of late. Yes, we are, Anthony. We are. I love the beard on your thumbnail there. Yeah, we are. The winning is just so cool. George, Dr. Steve, what do you think about the left's assertion that Medicare and Medicaid will have to be cut in order to make the $880 billion in cuts Trump is proposing? Well, they're going to make that assertion. And keep in mind, this is the party whose leader looked in the camera and said, "We finally beat Medicare." And Trump is ahead of that now. I don't know if it's with America PAC. I don't know what the who's running the commercials, but he's ahead of that, showing that there was actually a Medicare penalty on pills, an extra amount that people had to spend on their medications that he wants to get rid of. So he's getting ahead of the game of commanding the narrative with Medicare and Medicaid. It's going to be more Medicare than anything else, I think. And we'll have to see. We'll have to see if that branding works. Obviously, it's nonsense because there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse that if you just get rid of that, you're good to go. And he's also been getting ahead of it with the Social Security, where he's saying that 4 million, 5 million is going to people over the age of 250. And then I forget who it was. I think it was Bernie Sanders. No one over 250 years old is getting a check from Social Security. No one. And then everybody's responding with, yes, we know no one over 250 years old is getting a check. Yes, we know that. Someone is getting a check, though. That's the point. So I think he's kind of gotten ahead of that, but we'll see. Maybe they will be successful in that. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, in your opinion, how quickly do we get all Soros anti-American DAs and state AGs out of here, especially in red states like in Texas and Austin, Dallas, and Houston? Yeah, there are some PACs that are being developed right now as we speak. I was talking to somebody about one. We'll probably have them on our channel, who's has a PAC that's designed specifically to identify viable alternatives to these Soros-backed DAs in places where they can win and spend that money well and kick out what's left of Soros's disease here in our nation. DA disease. Benton, Dr. Steve, I would love to hear your insights regarding the topic of the President of the United States attempting to broker a deal with Hamas on Gaza. There are two levels to this endeavor. Could it be God has appointed Donald Trump for such a time as this? Joel Rosenberg stated in this week's program a prophecy made in Zephaniah 2 that Israel will reclaim the land of Gaza. Also, the removal of the Palestinians will fulfill the prophecy found in Ezekiel 38 when Israel will become a land of unwalled villages. Yeah, it's a good question, Benton. I don't know in terms of those prophecies. Again, just so you know, my theology tends to be a little bit more preterist. I tend to see a lot of these theologies or a lot of these passages having been fulfilled already in the Greco-Roman period of time or in the first couple of centuries of the Christian era. That doesn't mean that I don't see them as what's the word I'm trying to remember, as microcosmic, that those fulfillments could be microcosms of a larger macrocosmic fulfillment, since life is not so much a straight line, but it's more cyclical. So we go through, ebbs and falls, rises and fallings, but we are moving somewhere. But there's a judge's pattern to, men do what's right in the eyes of God, then they forget God and they come under judgment. And then there's a great revival and God delivers them and people come back, like what I think is happening here in the United States right now. There's a revival and people come back and righteousness and prosperity fills the land, and then people forget the Lord and they do what's right in their own eyes, and all of a sudden then there are curses that come upon it. There's this cyclical movement in history. So that's a good, so very much there could, the fulfillments that I understand could be micro fulfillments as larger macro fulfillment. But that's it. I haven't put a lot of time and attention to those macro fulfillments. So Joel Rosenberg would certainly know a lot more of it than I. But yeah, I mean, bottom line, what Trump is trying to do with Gaza is he sees there's an infrastructure problem and an ideology problem. So an infrastructure problem, obviously, because it's just been blown to smithereens, and buildings need to be knocked down fully and rebuilt and so forth. And there's an ideology problem of Hamas and this Islamic fundamentalism that wants to wipe out Israel. And so for Trump's solution is to turn it, to the Riviera of the Middle East, where you bring in all these investors, all this international money, and you basically do buy Gaza. And by doing that, you can then dilute with all the international investors. So it's very similar to what they're trying to do with the minerals deal along the DMZ point in Ukraine. By that, then you can dilute the ideological extremism, and then whatever politics emerges there, it's going to be reflective much more of a moderate, very practical, very pro-business, very pro-prosperity politics, as opposed to the endless fundamentalist warring that's going on there. Because I think Trump is right on that. There is no end. This is where I know I have a lot of geopolitical friends who are very much on the Palestinian side of things. And by the way, I get that. I understand the argument. But in the end, to me, what is the argument? The argument is, well, you want a two-state solution. Well, there's two problems with that two-state solution. One is one of the states doesn't want it. Now what? Well, but the whole world, the United Nations has voted for it. So what? They're a sovereign nation. They're not going to go with the United Nations. The United Nations doesn't have this sanctity over them. One of the nations, namely Israel, does not want a two-state solution. And then number two, even if you had the two-state solution with Jerusalem as the shared capital, what's Hamas going to do? I mean, is it just go away? Or, it could only end up increasing in its, now that they've got their own state, now let's push Israel out completely. So I agree with Trump. I don't think there's any solution other than turning Gaza into a kind of international center for business and commerce and tourism. Because if you turn it becomes peace. It becomes a place of prosperity. And it's not even an issue now of one state, two states. And yes, there'll be plenty of Palestinians still living there. I know Trump's said mixed messages about that. But again, when all's said and done, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, now Egypt, they're all talking about coming in and investing and trying to help rebuild Gaza ever since Trump said maybe we'll take over Gaza. It's very, very interesting stuff. Anyway, there you go, Ben. That's the way I understand it. Davros, Dr. Steve, let's suppose you're 100% right. Suppose the Dominion completely collapses, leaving MAGA the overwhelming dominant force. But our voting structure is diametric. Yes, of course. Every election offers this guy or that guy. Every bill offers a yes or a no choice. Assuming MAGA fully wins, where would the next division be? Where would the next electoral struggle be? Yeah, that's what I mean. So my only way, seriously, the only way I can make sense of it is I think if there's sort of like a Bernie Sanders form of MAGA that popped up. So because he's got the populist benefides, he would have to embrace border security because those are pre-political at this point. Those are getting 80% support. So it's pre-partisan, kind of like, it's like Medicare or Social Security. It's just nobody's talking about gutting it, for example. It's pre-political. But we've got all the entrepreneurs on our side. I mean, I could see that. I could see that, or I could see the tech right and the trad right splitting. I could see that. I could see the trad right growing increasingly impatient with the transhumanist endeavors of the tech right. That's a possibility. So there, it's hard to foresee at this point. Right now, we've got a common sense consensus governing the country with a lunatic left fringe. That's our politics right now. And your assessment is, well, okay, lunatics eventually, they entail their own demise. And so who then replaces them? And it would have to be a split. And the only splits I see is a populist split. Maha and MAGA maybe splitting. Populist left, populist right. You do that. You have that in Italy. So you've got your M5, the 5-star M5, 5-star party. That was a populist left. And then you have your brothers of Italy and Lega, and it's populist right. So you could see that, or you could see maybe something like the tech right splitting with the trad right, where the trad right is much more comfortable with Amishmen than they are with Mark Andreessen. I'm just trying to come up with an alliteration there. They're much more comfortable with a traditional, more primitive way of life than they are with going to Mars and spending all this money on putting chips in the brain. I could see that. That's a possibility. Right now, it's not there, but I could see that happening. Brandon, Doc, in my opinion, the worst pick so far is Bondi. In my eyes, she has 2 strikes against her. The first was not criminally charging the New York officials. And then the second was the Epstein cluster, on thin ice, overpromise, underdeliver. Absolutely right, Brandon. There's no way I would even remotely push back on that. I think you are absolutely entitled to that, because I think she did it to herself. Again, that's what drives me crazy, is that this was a self-inflicted wound. And she's going to have to make up for it. My hope is she will. I'm still putting some hope in that she will. Anthony, the demented cats showed their true colors at the joint session. There's no turning back now, and I hope Americans took notice. Yeah, I think you're a lot of people. I mean, certainly Harry Enton has talked about that. You even have some CNN panels. Well, was Enton talking about it? Yeah, I mean, or even just the commentary afterward from Rachel Maddow. I mean, what she said, who was that other, was it Nicole Wallace? Talking about that 13-year-old boy. I hope he doesn't commit suicide. I mean, what the hell do you even, what's in your brain to even begin to think in categories like that? So no, I'm with you. I think a lot of people saw it and they were pretty shocked. It's going to take a long time before that party builds goodwill with voters. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, I saw a video yesterday with Victor Davis Hanson. Stated that it is Congress passes a bill that requires voter ID in all elections and paper ballots as well, and limiting who gets mail-in ballots. You thought, good? No, he will definitely. I trust anything Victor Davis Hanson says. Yeah, so Congress would have to pass the bill. The problem is the filibuster. Can they get over the filibuster? I doubt it. And again, Democrats they're all in. They're doubling down on stupid right now. But you have to get past the 60 vote mark. If it, as I understand it, if it does not have to do with judges or the economy. So we'll have to see. Maybe they'll figure out a way of being able to reconcile it with just a simple majority vote. Blood the Impaler. If what you say about the states being able to handle the elections, how does the Voting Rights Act pass? Yeah. So as I understand it, it all just comes down to civil rights. You're not allowed to violate civil rights. But apart from that, pretty much the rest of it has thus far all come down to the states. And keep in mind, when Nancy Pelosi when they were doing their own shenanigans back in 2021, we went full We went full 10th Amendment. Who the hell are you to tell that this isn't going to pass judicial scrutiny? Who the hell are you to tell us how to do our elections? You federal government, stay out of it, kind of thing. So that's what I mean. I'm just being realistic. Outside of 14th Amendment kind of stuff, of basic civil rights stuff. Thus far, the courts have just pretty much allowed states to run their own elections in accordance with the 10th Amendment. Not that I want to see some major overhaul. I'm with you. It's just the question is, how do we do it? Benton, what is your opinion about SCOTUS? Ooh, guys, I may have to get going here. I have an interview on Sirius Radio in a couple of minutes, so I may have to. How many more? Micah, just let me know how many more I have questions, and I want to get everybody. 11. All right. I'm unfortunately I'm going to have to bail after this one. Unfortunately, what is your opinion about SCOTUS Justice Barrett? Recently aligned with, okay, we have talked about this, so let's try another one. So hopefully you got that. Keith, just want to say thank you, Keith. Thank you, and thank you for the gift. Thank you. Joe Bro, what do you think about Daily Wire's push to? Oh yes, all right, that's a great question about Derek Chauvin being pardoned. Specifically, do you think this is the right time for MAGA to push for this with all the political capital we currently have? Yes, no, definitely. I do think Officer Chauvin was sacrificed to the gods of wokeness, and there was just simply too much in the autopsy to justify that kind of sentence that he got. That's right. Yeah. All right. Yeah, we do. I do have to get going. All right, guys. I love you. I will see you on Monday, if not before something breaks. I'll be on there. We've got tons of stuff on the channel all weekend. Make sure you check out all the interviews we have. They're great. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon, guys. God bless.